was, of course, nice and cleared, no woods around here at all.
Probably not a tree in sight.
That's right. Well, folks, we've come to the conclusion that you really can't be a national park, like Rocky Mountain National Park, unless you have trails. Fortunately, here in the Blackstone River Valley, we're blessed with a wide variety of great trails to hike and enjoy. Hi, I'm Chuck Arning, Park Ranger with the Blackstone River Valley National Heritage Corridor. I'm here with my good friend and fellow ranger, Dick Kleber, and we're going to tell you about the trails of the valley. Now, you probably didn't realize, but Native American trails were the first major transportation systems of the valley. Matter of fact, some of our major highways still are laid over those same Indian trails, like Route 146, the Great Road in Lincoln, the Lewis-Quizet Pike, the Mendon Road that runs from Massachusetts to Rhode Island. So you see, Native Americans had a huge impact here in the valley. But they weren't the only ones that made interesting trails, did they, Dick? This is a very interesting one too, isn't it?
This is a beauty. 45 miles, all the way from Providence up to Worcester. This is the old towpath of the Blackstone Canal. Towpath, T-O-W, not T-O-E.
Not like my big
No, no. No, this is about, well, 8 to 10 feet wide, normally about 3 to 4 feet above water level. The horses used to walk along here towing the barges. Now, of course, that's not the canal. When the river was behind a dam and had slack water, they used to put the barges right in the river, so it saved digging the canal. So it's 45 miles of gorgeous walking is really something to see. You know, up in Massachusetts, Providence-Worcester Railroad bought up the old canal and the towpath, and they built their railroad right along most of the towpath. They didn't have to build a right-of-way. It was really a lot cheaper for them.
Yeah.
But there are still many of these sections that are preserved, and they really make marvelous walking trails.
So we can stretch our legs.
You bet your life.
And folks, that's exactly what we're going to do. Excuse me. We're going to show you the valley through the trails. So grab your hiking shoes and your comfortable walking boots and join us as we go and discover the trails of the corridor. Now, Dick, how far does this run down?
This is about 4 miles.
Treat for you today. We're down here in Douglas at the Southern New England Trunk Line Trail, and we'll talk to the folks from Minnebrook Farm and the Bay State Trail Riders Association and learn a little bit more about one of the interesting trails of the Blackstone Valley. But I will tell you, folks, we're going to be in a wagon. It's going to feel like you're back in the 1850s heading west, jumping up and down, so grab hold of your armchairs because we're in for a real ride. We'll catch you on the trail. Well, I might as well introduce you to everybody. We're here with the Hill family on a lovely wagon cart sitting on the Southern New England Trunk Line. And we're with Rose, who's the secretary of the Bay State Riders. And behind us, we have some of the riders here who are out exercising their horses. And the reason why we came here today was to talk about trails. The fact that New England has tremendous variety of all kinds of trails, and the Blackstone Valley is really no different. We're fortunate enough to be here with everybody to talk about all the effort and the partnerships that went into taking this old railroad bed and turning it into a very productive trail system for all sorts of vehicles, people, and as you see, horses. So today, we're going to do a little exploring as we continue along here and find out the real story of the Southern New England Trunk Line, the Bay State Riders, and how they've all come together to make a great place to go for a ride. So come on, jump on board, but it's a little bumpy, so you better hang on. Joe.
The Bay State Trail Riders was first organized in 1973, so we've been around for a long time. Our founder, Ed Worley of Bellingham, was very instrumental in this whole area getting things started. He was a strong advocate of what we called linear trail systems. He wanted to be able to go from one point to another long distance rather than going around in circles in any given park. So he was very strong. He did a lot of work. He put a lot of hours into researching and getting this trail established. This railroad bed goes back to the mid-1800s.
I do a lot of riding, and we lived in Sherburne, and I thought the trails were nice over there, but it's just nothing like here. It's fabulous. I can ride in 3 states in about an hour.
This is a section of the former
Grand Trunk.
line that was never completed. This would have been a crossing for a bridge abutment. You can see it on both sides of the trail. The person that was responsible for obtaining the financing unfortunately went down with a Titanic, and the trunk line was never finished. A lot of places that have bike trails are somewhat limited to horse use because we need to have a shoulder. We naturally can't ride the horses on a paved area.
Right.
But we need a good 2-foot, 3-foot shoulder off the side of the bikeway. And we're hoping that it stays compatible, that people don't limit the use of any of these trails. They call it the bikeway, but we're hoping that there will be a little bit of a shoulder so that people that want to go out and walk or ride their horses will have access to those other trails. Not just limited
Now, do you have
to
problems with the motorized vehicles?
No, we have most of this area. The people are pretty courteous. They know what to do when they find horses on the trail. The only danger is if the element of surprise, if you meet
Right.
them coming up around a corner where they don't see you until the last minute, they have to cut real quick. But usually as soon as they see the horses, they'll stop, they'll shut off their motors, they'll let you go by, and they'll wait for you to get a little distance away so that before they continue. And it hasn't been a problem.
So a lot of the continue keeping this trail open is a real coalition of a lot of different user groups.
Yes, yes. We try to stress multi-user on all the trail systems because they are so limited that to say that only one group can use one certain area is very restrictive. You just don't have the trails available to us anymore to say that we have that luxury. And the more people you have using any particular area, the better your input. The more chances of your financing to get repairs done, to keep it opened. We've always found that multi-use is the best way to go.
Hi, Becky.
Hi, Chuck.
Hi, ladies. How you doing?
Hello.
We've had a great day so far, coming out on a nice wagon trip with the Hill family, but we're out here to talk to some of the riders and learn a little bit more about the trails here. Now, Becky, I understand that this is actually a national trail.
Yes, it is. It was designated a National Recreational Trail in perpetuity in 1993. This is a trail program for the National Park Service. To gain this status, it had to meet requirements for 10 years prior to that. So it's the first official National Park Service program in the area.
That's great. Now, that shows that obviously you, the Bay State Trail Riders, and lots of other groups have been working this trail a lot longer than those just 10 years.
Yes, we have. We've been involved with this since the very beginning when it was officially abandoned by the Penn Central Corporation. And Ed Wally, the original founder of Bay State, in his foresight said this would make a great trail, and it did.
And there's been a lot of work to bring us up to such a nice, smooth path. There's a lot of partnerships between Mass DEM and who are some other people involved?
In April of '92, we started brushing back this section here from the Stone Bridge out to Route 96. That's 1.3 miles. It took us a year to get this brushed back. We had applied through a grant through the Blackstone Valley Heritage Corridor, and we received that grant. With that money, we were able to reopen the drainage ditches on the side and fill in some standing water that was at least 2 feet deep down by Morse Pond. So between Blackstone Valley, DEM, and Bay State, we were able to, on June 3rd, 1993, National Trails Day, officially open the first section of this railroad bed, the Southern New England Trunkline Trail.
That's great. Just goes to show what a lot of people can do when they really get motivated. And, you know, in preserving and protecting our natural heritage and our trails, it's a lot of private citizens get to do a lot of work. It's not just the National Park Service and some of our government officials. Everybody gets involved. And that's a real tribute to your club and all the work you've been doing since probably the early 70s.
Well, we enjoy this trail, and it's open to everybody. It's, motorized, cross-country skiing, snowmobiles, even critters. I see deer tracks out here. I've seen my first fisher cat out here that I've ever seen out here. I've seen otters in that swamp just down the trail here on the left. Every time you come out here, you see something. It's worth it.
Well, that's great. We'll let you go and enjoy some more of the trail, and we'll catch you later here in the Blackstone Valley as we understand trails. Just what is the legend behind Nine Men's Misery Trail in Cumberland, Rhode Island? Let's catch up with Ranger Suzanne Buchanan and learn a little bit more about men's misery.
Hi, this is Ranger Suzanne Buchanan bringing you a Blackstone moment. I'm here in Cumberland, Rhode Island on the former site of the Cistercian Monastery. And in the early 1900s, the Trappist monks settled here to form a religious community. Following a fire in 1950, the town of Cumberland acquired this area for open recreation space. And they certainly have done a wonderful job with the 550 acres here. Several trails are available to you here: the Peace Mile, the Norman Beauregard Jogging Trail, and the one that I'd like to feature in our moment is Nine Men's Misery Trail. So the old saying goes, misery loves company. Come on, let's go check out that Nine Men's Misery Trail. It's hard to imagine at one time that this parcel of land was owned by Wampanoag Indians. Legend has it that 10 men became separated from Captain Pierce, and it was at this location that they were ambushed. I'm here at the Nine Men's Misery Monument, and this is approximately where the massacre took place. One lucky soldier was able to escape, and for him, Abbott Run Valley was named. The stone cairn here was constructed by the Trappist monks to pay tribute to the fallen soldiers. Veterans groups throughout the years have placed commemorative flags here at the Nine Men's Misery site to pay tribute to the fallen soldiers. This site is considered to be one of America's earliest veterans memorial. So folks, if you've enjoyed today's Blackstone moment and you want to find more about Nine Men's Misery, at the library you can obtain a walking brochure developed by a local Eagle Scout. So this has been Suzanne Buchanan for a Blackstone moment. We'll catch you out in the valley.
We've been on all types of trails today. Multiple use trails for horses, mountain bikes, people, motorized vehicles, you name it. And the trail right here seems better adapted for mountain goats than people, although I'm doing quite nicely, thank you. However, our next trail is a little bit different. It's trails for fish. That's right, you heard me, trails for fish. We're gonna go down to Rhode Island and hook up with Chris Powell, a fish biologist, and talk about trails for fish. So join us. In this month's show, we're talking about trails. And one of the trails we really want to talk to you about is trails for fish. You say, trails for fish, what can we mean by that? So I decided I'd go down to Rhode Island and get a fish biologist, Chris Powell, who's with the Division of Fisheries, Wildlife, and Estuarine Resources here, to tell us a little bit about fish, fish biology, and why trails for fish, or fish ladders, are important to us on the Blackstone River. Now, Chris, we're nowhere near to Blackstone today, are we?
No, we're quite a distance from the Blackstone. We're in southern Rhode Island on the Pawcatuck River, which is one of our first restoration efforts in Rhode Island.
Now, when you talk about restoring fish to the rivers, what do you mean by that?
Well, restoration means putting something back to its original condition. And since we can't go in and necessarily undo all the things that were done during the Industrial Revolution, like this dam, we put in what we call fish ladders. We enable the fish to pass over these dams by putting in structures, man-made structures, which allow them to ascend up to the top of the dam and move on up into their spawning areas. We're trying to get them back to where they used to go before the Industrial Revolution, before a lot of dams were built on our river systems.
Now, what type of fish are we talking about? These ladders aren't for all types of fish, right?
No, these are for what we call anadromous fish. Anadromous is a Greek word that means going up, returning run. These are fish that have to go back to fresh water to spawn. They spend most of their life in salt water, where they feed, where they grow, and then they return to their natal streams, the streams that they were born in, to spawn. The fish that we're talking about, in this case, we're talking about Atlantic salmon, we're talking about alewives, or buckies as they're called around Rhode Island. We're talking about blueback herring, the river herring, and we're talking about American shad. Those seem to be the main fish that we are talking about. There are other anadromous fish, but those are the ones that we're focusing our efforts on in Rhode Island.
Now, the actual act of spawning is an amazing phenomenon, isn't it?
Correct, it is very amazing. In that these fish, through evolutionary time, have developed this sense of returning to the exact stream that they were born in. And unfortunately, over time, man has stopped them from returning to those streams by dams, like I mentioned. And what we need to do is create that ability for them to get up these streams, but they sense current, they sense chemical cues in the water. They actually know exactly where to go from offshore in the Atlantic to get back to the same little stream that they spawned in.
Now, these fish ladders are designed to assist the fish over these man-made obstacles.
Right.
How do they work?
A fish ladder is a pretty simple device. Basically, a fish cannot leap over a certain height. A fish cannot swim through a certain current. So what we do is, knowing the biology of the fish, knowing what they can and can't do, we try to provide a facility which allows them to move upstream easily, to not expend so much energy that when they get to the spawning ground, they either die or they just don't have the energy to return to the spawning ground. So the way the fish ladder works is essentially like a ladder. It's a series of steps, so to speak, where fish actually can go from pool to pool to pool as they move up the height of the dam until they get to above the dam. The ladders are designed a certain way so that there's a certain amount of current that goes through the ladder. They're designed with a certain angle of slope so that the fish don't have to ascend too rapidly. The idea is to do not push the fish beyond their normal swimming capacity.
That's great. Now, in a mill dam like this, there are some other obstacles that you have to counter in order to lure the fish into the ladder.
Right. The fish are cued on certain things in the environment, and this is something that they've been cued on for millions of years. But what they're cued on are things like current, water temperature, and probably one of the most important aspects of fish ladder design is to come up with a ladder which will attract the fish. If you look at this dam, you'll notice that there's an awful lot of water going over it. And that water is an attraction to those fish. And what we need to do with fish ladders is create an opening to the ladder, or an entrance, or put out the welcome mat to the fish so that they know that this is where they have to go. And the way we do that is by creating more flow, or what we call attraction flow, at the mouth of the ladder, so that when the fish comes up, they don't spend a lot of time poking into every nook and cranny where there's current, trying to decide which one will let them go up. So we need to attract the fish through a certain attraction flow, and that's what we try to create with the design of the ladder and with the construction of the ladder. One of our problems is we are retrofitting old dams with fish ladders. And in many cases, these old dams had mill structures on them, like the one across the way here that we're looking at. Those old mill structures had raceways that are dilapidated in many cases. They have other areas where water is leaking around the dam, and they are creating an attraction flow for the fish. So we try to work with dam owners, we try to work with mills to try to see if we can't create a better attraction flow on the side of the dam that the fish ladder's at, rather than on the side where the mill is. Unfortunately, that oftentimes conflicts with hydro use, with the use of that water for other purposes. So that's where technology is. We're trying to develop fish ladders where we can actually accommodate the fish, which is our primary goal, and hopefully accommodate the use of the dam by other mill owners, hydropower. It's possible to make them compatible. Part of our job is restoring these runs is to actually bring fish in from other areas and stock them into the systems. We bring fish now from Massachusetts. We bring them from the other part of the Blackstone. We bring them to Rhode Island. We stock them as spawning adults in the upstream areas. Those fish spawn, the young move downstream, the adults move downstream, and the young will return to the same river 3 years later, approximately. The adults will return the next year to spawn. And what we do is we monitor through various sort of electronic devices. Fish counters, we call them, electronic fish counters. We monitor using video cameras and videotaped. We monitor how many fish are going up and down the system so we can actually get a handle on how many are returning, how many are going back, and then since we don't get an absolute number necessarily because we miss fish, some go over the dam, some go other ways, some don't come back, at least if we do this on a long-term basis with a long-term monitoring program, we can tell relatively whether the run is up or down, and we have some idea in some cases what the potential for the system is. Knowing the habitat that's available, we can actually calculate what the potential is for that system becoming a very successful run. And then we monitor it over years to see where we're doing. It's kind of like the barometer on the river for anadromous fish.
So why don't we head up onto the Blackstone and find out how the fish ladders are going to work in the Blackstone River system. So come on, Chris, let's go up the valley.
Good idea. Upstate to the Blackstone.
Well, folks, we told you we'd make it back to the Blackstone. And there's not a better place to be to talk about a fish ladder than here at Slater Mill. Slater Mill was the birthplace of the American Industrial Revolution. And it's here we want to put the second of 2 fish ladders. And the project, I guess, is one of your babies, isn't it, Chris?
Well, it's one of the efforts of the Anadromous Fish Restoration Task Force. About a year ago, the Rhode Island Division of Fish, Wildlife, and Estuarine Resources formed a special task force to look at anadromous fish restoration on the Blackstone River. That task force is made up of federal, state, municipal, and other interest groups that are interested in restoring anadromous fish back to the Blackstone River.
Now, where is a good spawning area on the Blackstone?
Well, what we did is we actually looked at the Blackstone River itself. We looked at the habitat upstream of each dam, and we decided that once we got over the 4th dam, there was sufficient habitat in the marsh system up there and the shoreline habitat for spawning of river herring. We have stocked some river herring in the river. They did reproduce. We did capture the young, so we've already shown that river herring will successfully spawn, reproduce, grow, and go downstream in the Blackstone.
How long will this project be?
It'll probably be a very long project. We're hoping that when the plan is written, what we're doing right now is we're evaluating the feasibility of doing it. The task force is looking to develop what we call a strategic anadromous fish restoration plan for the Blackstone. When that plan is developed, that will sort of be the blueprint for developing the anadromous fish passage facilities, the fish ladders and so on the first 4 dams.
Now, some of the success you've had with, like, the Gilbert Stewart birthplace is very appropriate, because there you have a very historic, renovated, restored area, and you were able to successfully put a fish ladder there. And some of the lessons you learned from that partnership are also can be used here at Slater Mill.
That's correct, that's correct. We have worked with the Gilbert Stewart people in Rhode Island, or in lower part of Rhode Island, southern Rhode Island, on the Gilbert Stewart fish passage area, and we have worked with them to sort of create that fish ladder which would fit in with the historic character of the Gilbert Stewart birthplace. And so far, everything has gone very well. We've worked it into the dam that they rebuilt. We've worked it into the historic nature of the site itself. And the people who are actually running the Gilbert Stewart birthplace are very pleased, because now they can tell 2 stories, not just the historic story, but they can tell the story of bringing back river herring to the Gilbert Stewart run. Fish ladders have been installed in historic areas before. They have been installed in such a way that they're compatible with the historic use, and they really don't take away from that historic use. Remember, the fish were here before the historic use was here, and a lot of people don't realize that, but I think that because the history is here and it's very important, and the Industrial Revolution and everything that happened along with it are important, we've been able to look at that area and sort of come back with designs which are compatible with the environment. Perfect opportunity. The anadromous fish were in this stream long before the Industrial Revolution, and now what we see is a great opportunity because of such a good river system, because the water quality is changing, because there's so much interest to bring back something to the river which long ago was here, and now we think we can bring it back and successfully do so.
One of the many great projects the Blackstone River Valley National Heritage is involved with partnerships such as Rhode Island DEM and many, many other partners here in the valley to restore the valley to where it once was. Good luck, Chris. It sounds like a lot of fun and a lot of work, too.
Well, someday we hope to be standing at this very spot and possibly watching river herring ascend a ladder, go up, ascend another couple ladders, and hopefully spawn and watch their offspring 3 years later come back to the Blackstone.
In any season, at any time of day, the view from King Philip's Rock over the Blackstone Valley is absolutely spectacular. If you look south, you get the Blackstone River, the historic Canal, Rice City Pond. The southwest, you have Goat Hill, the lock at Goat Hill, which dates back to the Canal era and is one of the best preserved canal locks in the entire valley. To the west, you have the hilltop farms, which were so important to the development of the valley during the colonial period. So it's a fantastic place to just sit and relax, enjoy the wildlife, enjoy the scenery, and take a look at what the history of the valley. But even better, there's a lot of trails around here. Dick, matter of fact, you've done some homework and been able to connect some of the parks in the area, haven't you?
Matter of fact, I have, Chuck. About 3/4 of a mile over here to the east, you've got the West Hill Dam, and they've got a gorgeous trail over there. The engineers have developed a circular trail going around the floodplain. Really neat. And of course, here in the park, we've got lots of good trails. We've got one coming up from park headquarters up to King Philip Rock here. Another one going from Hartford Avenue over to Goat Hill Lock. And then you get onto the towpath and keep on going for another two miles, and you got Plumber's Landing. And of course, this is all through the woods and lots of wildlife and an awful lot of fun.
It is a lot of fun. I tell you, the folks here, Mass DEM, John Pilzarski and his crew, Bob and Tuck, do a great job maintaining the trails, so they're really easy to hike. But they can't do it by themselves. Fortunately, the Worcester chapter of the Appalachian Mountain Club has gotten involved. And they've adopted a portion of the trail here. They do tree plantings, they do regular trail maintenance and cleanups to make the place even better for us to hike. But I tell you what, folks, even they can't do it by themselves. They need our help. So every time you come out for a hike in the many trails of Blackstone Valley, take along a little bag, pick up some of the trash you see. Really makes a difference. And if your club really wants to get involved, they can adopt a portion of one of the many trails here in Massachusetts or in Rhode Island. It's a great way to get involved. And that's really the story of the Blackstone Valley, getting involved. So anyhow, this is Chuck Arning, Park Ranger,
And Dick Cleaver.
with a Blackstone River Valley National Heritage Corridor saying, we'll see you on the trails.